That
Thank
answers
you for
that.
reminder.
Okay. Do you know, is Maud showing up?
I haven't specifically heard from Maud. I was expecting that she was, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. Beth,
Yes.
because you have to go, why don't we first, and I'm also asking you to give me permission to have access to the drive. Maybe we should.
Just David. Okay. Sorry, I have an unstable internet connection, hence my lack of video.
Okay,
I sent Celeste and Andrea editing links for the Google folder, the Drive folder. I'm
Got
happy
it.
to do that to anyone else who feels they want it.
got it. Maud should have it, right? Probably.
Yes, I will make sure she has it.
Okay.
You do also on LWVCO's YouTube channel have a playlist specifically for this task force. So that's where meeting recordings will go. The meeting on the 21st of January or July is up there. And if you have any presentations or anything like that, they'll go in there as well, just FYI.
This meeting is not all that interesting yet. Maybe it will become, but so far not so interesting. Okay. Okay. I guess I'm going to move it and see what happens. I hope I didn't make a mistake. I just moved the logos into a file called logos.
Oh, I see it.
Okay. Okay, I think, oh, I'm no longer. So I don't have access to that okay, something weird has happened. Okay, so would you tell us about this forum document that some people use and other people don't?
Sorry. It is not a document. Hold on just a sec. Sorry. I'm not seeing it. Okay. Hold on, folks. I'm going to share my screen.
Last time I checked, there was only one comment in there.
Okay, I'm sorry to keep you waiting here. Okay. When you sign into the LWVCO website,
Your screen is not sharing.
yep,
And that's
I'm working.
And that's the very first problem, is that you have to sign in. So if you're not a league member, you can't do that.
Okay, that is correct. So basically, this group needs to decide if you want to use forums or not, because they are really limited. I had thought that Club Express would give us the ability to add non-members, but they say that's not possible. That said, it is still, you know, somewhat of a communication tool. But, and we do, have a forum set up for alternative voting methods, and I'll just show you how to access it because it's here. Can you all see our?
Can I interject just a thought? And Beth, I heard everything you said about it being a great recruiting tool and encouraging more participation. But I must say, I was really creeped out by Amy W. last time. And if we have people joining the task force meetings that we don't know who they are or what their motivation is, is there potential for sabotaging what we're trying to do?
Well, the backup, Brenda, is that people must register. And so therefore we have their emails.
I mean, anybody can set up any kind of email though.
Yep, that's true. But also in a Zoom meeting, the host has the ability to remove a participant at any time.
Then maybe after the third ask of introducing yourself and saying who you're from, they get booted off or something. I guess I'm a little bit gun shy with just hearing stories of infiltration of groups and nefarious activities going on, that it kind of causes me some concern.
Sure, I hear you. But let me flip it. What if an introvert is really interested in alternative voting methods, but just doesn't really want to talk?
I mean, I'm pretty much an introvert and I'll at least say my name and
Sure.
where I'm from.
Um,
I get that there's definitely both sides to it, but obviously like today, there's no problem because we all know who everybody is.
mhm.
But if the vast majority of us are league members and we already have a forum for it, maybe that's a way to communicate. I know emails, I lose emails all the time. And if the link is in an email that was sent out 2 weeks ago, or
Well, and messages that are posted through the forum, you can see them either in the forum or they also come through email.
right.
So when you sign up or sign into the LWVCO website, the members tab appears on the black bar and you go down to forums. And here is a list of our current forums. There's Alternative Voting Methods Task Force. And
Who
if
put
you
the
want to,
Let's click on the members list. I'm curious who the members are.
I don't even have to go to the LWVCO. I have that show up in our local Club Express
good.
forums list. We've got all of our local ones, and then down below are the Colorado ones.
okay, I didn't know that. Cool.
Mhm.
So I see lots of names here. This is great. Is that like, what is the number in the parentheses behind? Is that,
That's their member number.
so some people have a 2-digit member number? That's impressive. Ross Park is member number 1.
Well, I mean, keep in mind, well, so is Barbara Dungy. But Ross Park belongs to the La Plata League. Barbara
I
Dungy
see.
belongs to the Arapahoe Douglas. So, I mean, you can pretty much ignore the member numbers.
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
irrelevant.
Gunnison doesn't have 987,000 members, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but the number is verification that they are a member. So
Well-
all of these people are actually members.
They
current
have to
members.
be, because
to
it's
be to
on the
get-
Club Express website.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a question about one of these people, whether that person was a member, and it evidently they are. So, okay, good.
Yes.
Beth, you have a good number, 3. Okay. So
okay.
we could write, if we wrote a note right now and said, we're having our alternative voting methods team meeting. Hope you can join us. It would go into the email of all these people, right?
Not necessarily. There's settings in everybody's profile, whether they want to receive those emails or not.
I see.
Yeah.
So if you didn't if you didn't update the profile, does it go to the email address? Like, I don't
Yeah.
think I've touched my
No.
profile.
No, you'd have to knowingly go into the forum itself to read them.
Mhm.
Okay, so if Maud is here, welcome, Maud. If you go into the forum, when I went, I saw only one message. And it was from a couple months ago. It was from Brenda.
No, it's a couple
don't-
years ago.
A couple of years ago.
Or
We did.
last
did we
year.
have this? Did we
Yeah,
have
that's-
this task force a couple of years ago?
We had the forum.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Wow. Obviously, we haven't been using this very much.
And probably nobody set up their emails or their profile to get emails from it.
Yeah,
Okay, this is all very useful information. Okay. What do people think of using the forum more and having your profile set up to receive emails, announcements so that you can know when there's been a message posted?
I'm all for it. That's what we use at our league is, and I think they work well. And that way, you know, if you're looking for a message, you at least have a starting point to look at. Emails just are too easily lost.
It's like a thread,
Yeah.
but it's a forum instead of a thread that you have to go find.
Well, there's threads within the forum.
Right.
We could also play wait and see a little bit. It sounds like right now we don't have any members who are not league members. And we could, you know, change what we do if we get some.
We
is
did
true.
have one or two people. Linda Bissett was just a member of the public. She said she was not a member of the league who joined us last time.
I mean, maybe we keep the meeting invites open to the public, but the communication stays with the league, and that would encourage public members, if they're really interested, to join.
I'm going to write that idea down.
yeah, great.
I mean, well, I think getting new people as members is a great thing. I'm not sure that a task force should cater specifically to the non-members when those of us that are actively involved have tools that we can use.
I also want to encourage people to join their local league too and get involved there when they can. Because this is a statewide group, which is fine. I love meeting people from
Well-
across the state, but I already know the people in my local league, you know, like if I didn't know anybody in the league, I might be more interested in meeting a local person first.
Isn't that basically, I mean, does Colorado have members that aren't members of the local leagues?
A very small number. And we actively discourage it, because we want people to join at the local level too. That's where all the action is. And it's really difficult, frankly, to join at the state level. And we want it to be that way. So like you have to call the office, you know, there's no way to join on our website. And let me look that up, Brenda, because I wouldn't be surprised if we've kind of allowed those members to fall off and get swept up by a local league. Typically, the only reason someone joins at the state level and not at the local level is if there's a league nowhere near them. But that would be like Holly, Colorado or something, you know? And sadly, people in Holly don't really want to join the league. They don't like us down. But
Well,
Um,
I would think that with so much of it on Zoom now, they could join whatever's closest to them and they don't have,
absolutely.
you know, the traveling isn't an issue anymore.
Let's get back to this idea of about using the tools. So the forum sounds like we have a better understanding of how the forum works. Two other tools are the web page. I'm not sure what is meant by the web page. And then there's a question, are there any other tools that are available to our task force?
Oh, we're setting up web pages for each task force that you all will have complete control over. And we're still working out like how that's gonna happen. We don't know. We're still working it out, but likely within a week, you will have a very basic introductory web page. And one of the reasons we're trying to figure out is we want people to be able to join directly from the web page. So when they click that button, yes, I want to join this task force, where does that go? So
Beth, is that a custom page on CO's website?
it is, but it is not yet active or visible.
But that's how you're setting it up as a custom page within CO?
Correct.
Okay,
And then you guys will be able to add whatever information, whatever links, whatever. So like the News Access and Literacy Task Force, their page will probably link directly to the Larimer County page because that's where all of their information happens to live. And that's fine, you know, no need to reinvent the wheel. So we're pretty flexible on what can be done with these web pages. And, you know, you've got a lot of artistic license and authority.
Okay,
so that sounds like that would be something in addition to what we use to communicate. Because we don't want communications back and forth on a page like that. That would be way too much information.
maybe that's more our face to the outside world.
Yes.
Mhm. And again, that could encourage people to join so that they can see the nitty gritty of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So each of these, okay, so if we have a person if we have a website, we need somebody to maintain it. It's going to be bare bones to start, but that's another role that we'll need. The forum, I think, kind of takes care of itself. We had talked about having co-facilitators for this group, and I think that the co-facilitators should be geographically diverse. So
Sorry, since I'm the only geographically diverse person.
well, there
Mm.
are 3 Denver area people here also, but I think they're sort of more as supporting people, not so much active task force members.
Before I get roped into being co-facilitator, I'll say I'm the webmaster for our league, so maybe I could help with that custom page. And
Cool. We
I'm
really
gonna
hope, sorry.
I'm going to say that you floated your name as the web person.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, I'm not signing you up for anything right now. I
Perfect.
mean, unless you are raising your hands especially to do that.
no, if there's somebody else that really wants to do it, I'll gladly let them. But given that you know, I'm our webmaster. I kind of know how those pages work. So unless somebody else, there may be other webmasters, and I gladly hand it off. But yeah, say I floated my name. That's good.
Okay. Anybody with technological skills out there, if you know how to get rid of this big empty space, that would be great. Also, I think we want to actually upload it. It looks like there's a link there in this so I'm going to actually upload it, or try to, now that I can. I don't know how to get it though. How do I move from my drive to this drive?
If you right click,
Yeah, file upload. I'm
Can you
happy to do.
can you give me permission to your file or your folder, and I'll do it, if that's okay.
I'm looking.
I also
looking.
really need to go about.
Okay. How do I give you permission?
Brenda, I
Um,
see you need to leave in about 5 minutes. Is there anything else that we need to connect with Brenda about? Sorry.
Nope.
Brenda,
Can-
is there anything you want us to, you want to share before we leave? Like,
Okay, yes, you know, and I replied back to all the comments. The only thing I will say is, and this is getting away from all this technological stuff, is if we're going to do this, I mean, I think that what you guys are doing on the Front Range at all the local levels is awesome, and that's a start. But my feeling is we don't have enough time to wait for all those to become successful. I think we need to go big or go home and start working to get something happening at the state level too, simultaneously.
my
and Andrea-
understanding is, there was a House Bill 1071 a year ago in 2021 that passed. So that's for instant runoff, single winner, ranked choice voting.
But wasn't that specifically to local elections?
Yes, to local elections.
See, that's what I'm
and-
saying. To start getting statewide elections. I mean, and it's going to take a long time to get this process through, but if we're just focusing on getting it happening at the local levels now, and then 5 years from now, we've had success there, and we start trying to get it at the state level, it may be too late.
So at the state level, it would be easy to do approval voting for governor, for things like that. We should discuss whether we want it to be in the primaries and the general, just one or the other.
I say
I
go
mean,
big or go home, do it
Go
all.
big, we do it all then. I mean, I think if you start big, then people will say, oh, no, we don't need to do that. We need, and then they'll say, yeah, okay. I mean, okay, great. I mean, I like the idea of keeping the current system where you have partisan primaries and then a general election and instituting a better voting method.
Right. And I think the primaries would still be party specific. I mean, we didn't open our primaries up to, so they would still be the same, but within that, I mean, and I always go back to in 2015, 16, if we'd had something like this, Trump never would have gotten the nomination. Because he always consistently got that 20-ish%, and the other 80% was split amongst the 18 other people that were running. So that's why I'm saying, let's just keep pushing at these local levels, and that's where we're going to show the success. But if we're not starting at the state level, if we're not trying to get it going at the state level,
and one thing to do before we start publicly pushing is, I like this idea, but do we want to agree amongst ourselves about what specific methods we want to advocate for? Because I know that's something that our local league, we tend to stay pretty agnostic about when we're trying to get communities to adopt a better voting method. We encourage communities to consider lots of voting methods and choose what's right for them. But do we want to get more specific than that?
Probably. Hey, I gotta go, guys. I think this is gonna be a great topic. I wish I could stay. I will. So will this Google Doc be, will you send a link or do we just save what we've got here so that we can access all this stuff after?
I can send a,
If I've already got the
Beth
link, am I already good to go?
you should be good to go.
Okay.
We're trying to get everything uploaded. I don't know how to give permission to Beth to move things around.
Um,
All right,
if-
thanks. I gotta go. Bye.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Celeste, when you open the folder, up at the top near the title of the folder, is there a little symbol with a couple people? Or just click the down arrow next to the title folder title,
I click the down arrow.
and then do you see share?
Ah, I do. Okay. So I want to type your name in. What is it? B Hendricks? What is it? My
Will you
computer
put my
doesn't.
Gmail address, please, which is Beth Hendricks, BETHHENDRIX 66,
The
at-
numeral 6 at,
2 6s. That's my
2
birth year. At gmail.com.
okay. It seems to know you. It's okay. Done. And I'm not the right person here on my account, it turns out. And I this stuff drives me crazy. Okay. So the rest of us are all Boulder County people and support people. What do we want to do?
I think we have to try to make a decision about what the purpose of the task force is before we even. And it sounds to me like, sorry about that. Sounds to me like we're going to have divergent views on what the purpose of the task force is.
You know, one thing we can do is we can come up with an idea and work on that idea and then change our plan. Like if we decide we can't do statewide elections, we could change it. I personally would also like to see us think about proportional representation, but maybe that's not reasonable. This is where I want Jen to weigh in. Did Jen just leave? I think she had a,
I'm back. I just had to run to the restroom.
Jen, what do you think about for the legislature trying to do some proportional representation thing?
I think that would be amazing. And I actually think that it's a pretty good time to do it in terms of what the public is paying attention to. Like, you know, I'm hearing about proportional representation in some areas of social media and media generally. So I think there would be a huge educational component, but, you know, certainly, you know, people are so much more aware of gerrymandering this cycle than they were 10 years ago and the problems that gerrymandering creates. But, you know, but once you've got people thinking about this, it's not that big a leap to get people to understand that even without malicious gerrymandering, single member districts are problematic. So I think that while people are paying attention to the flaws of redistricting, it's a pretty good time to start at least an educational campaign to let people know that, you know, proportional representation can be a thing, but not with single member districts.
So when I think about this, I think about the state offices, statewide offices, let's say. So governor, attorney general, treasurer, secretary of state, US senator. I think we could do it US senator. And then the congressional districts, we don't have control over
Right.
making that proportional representation, but we could do the state house and the state senate.
That, I think that would be the obvious place to go for exactly that reason. You know, it doesn't work with single winner elections. And as you say, you know, a change like that for Congress would have to happen at the national level. But the state has the right to decide how the state legislature is elected. And conveniently enough, both the state house and the state senate have sizes that are multiples of 5. So I think it would be great to advocate for 5-member districts, say, for both of them with something like STV.
So maybe we write that down as a possible thing for us to work on, and we can discuss it with a larger group next time. Does that sound reasonable?
Sure. I mean, so you and Pat saw, one of the many projects that's been languishing because I don't have enough time to do everything I want to do. I had a student who did this modeling for the state senate using 5-member districts, and just, you know, with statistical sampling showed that it would produce much more proportional outcomes and be much more resistant to gerrymandering. And so, you know, in my ample spare time, there are things I would like to update about that analysis. I would like to do a similar analysis for the state house. So, you know, I could arrange to have real data to put into making this case.
I think that would be great for educational material, Jen. I mean, I know that's something that we hear all the time, that, you know, there needs to be a big educational component to, you know, making a shift like this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just think those examples would be really helpful. And I agree that people are far more tuned into it now than they have been in the past.
Yeah. I mean, you know, everybody wants things to be fair. And of course, that's a loaded word. Fair can mean a whole lot of things. But it seems like proportional representation is pretty high on people's list for what fair means. And, you know, also, you know, there are algorithmic decisions to be made, like what's the size of the district? Is 5 members the right size? I think a lot of people don't want to get into a situation like Israel, where parties can get 1% of the vote and get a seat. But 5 is a nice compromise number. Like, you know, it's enough that you could imagine third parties getting a seat, because the level of support that a party would need within one of those mega districts to get a seat is about 16%, 17%. So, you know, in a circumstance where that is enough to win a seat, you could imagine the Green or the Libertarian Party actually winning some representation.
And you want it to be an odd number, because if it's an even number and you have 2 parties, one party will get half the seats and the other party will get the other half of the seats. So Colorado has 8 congressional districts. We would probably make it a 3-person district and a 5-person district, so that you could have some tipping balance, some change.
Well, you know, there's the practical reason for that in terms of 50-50 outcome in the legislature, but there's also the psychological reason. You know, people really fetishize 50%, and people want to feel like if my party got more than 50% of the votes, then I should get more than 50% of the seats.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm writing these ideas down.
So it sounds to me like,
But by the way, me getting this data, this is not a short project. Like, I would need to set up some serious coding, and then I have my computer chug for a couple of weeks to generate data. Like you know, I'm game to do it, but it's not something I'm going to do super quickly.
it sounds to me like Brenda is all for coming up with a massive campaign to put in an alternative voting method, and that she's thinking we need to settle on one. Is this really what we're primed to do yet?
I don't know. It would be an interesting conversation trying to settle on one, wouldn't it? I mean, even among our very active voting
So-
method team, we don't generally do that.
So I think that a very interesting thing would be to say, do the simple things in the largest districts, like statewide, for governor, for treasurer, use approval voting. And
Well,
then,
so here's the thing about that. The pushback that you hear from approval voting, and I think it's valid, is that people can't say who their favorite is unless they bullet vote, in which case it comes down to plurality again, if everybody bullet votes. I really liked what St. Louis did with the two-step process where they had approval to pick top two, but then they had something. And it occurred to me, that's basically star voting, except they only had scores of 0 to 1 and 0 to, instead of 0 to 5, and they had to have two separate elections. So I think that if you could explain it to people, I think people would really like star voting, because having a wider range of scores would let people express rank. I think people really like the idea of ranking. And especially because of all the PR that the ranked choice voting people have gotten. I think you would see more public support for a more expressive voting method than approval. Also realizing that that's hard on the administration side, but something like star would be easier than a full-on ranked choice.
The more we get into this, the more I like star also, but that's going to be a hard sell because nobody really.
But the thing is, you could point out what St. Louis did is mathematically equivalent to a simplified version of star. The only difference is that they only use scores of 0 and 1 instead of 0 to 5, and they had two separate elections.
so you're making the case that the tabulation is easy.
The tabulation is easy, and it satisfies voters' desire to be able to say, I like this candidate more than this one, who I like more than that one. They don't want to just say yes, no, because then they don't have a way to say their favorite and still use the expressiveness of it.
I think that it's, anytime you have a runoff, it's extra work. So
Yeah.
it's not as easy. I mean, I think making the case that it's easy might not be as easy as you think it is.
Well, but the beauty of star is that you don't have to have you don't have to have a whole separate election.
Right, but you do have to run another tabulation looking at every single ballot.
You do, but it's not like ranked choice voting where you have all these
Right.
like you know at the start you only have 2 rounds.
Right. You never have to like discount somebody's vote for candidate A because they've been eliminated. You look at the exact same ballot. The
Right.
first time you look at the whole thing, the second time you only look at 2 candidates. Done.
Yeah. So
You're not
it's like
changing any data or
Look,
moving any vote.
right. So it's definitely not as simple as a straight up approval vote, but it's a lot simpler than an IRV vote.
Yeah.
So I think it might be a compromise between expressiveness that voters want and the ability of election administrators to handle it.
I don't think you can argue that it's the most expressive of the main voting methods.
No,
Because
but it's more expressive than approval, though.
No, I'm saying, I don't think you can argue against that. Star voting, score voting is more expressive than any RCV, than any approval voting. Absolutely.
Right, right, because you
It
rate each
wins.
person.
It wins hands down. You can differentiate how much you want to.
Right.
It's great in terms of that.
Yeah. So
Just
I know,
doesn't-
I don't know how big this task force is going to be. I don't know how many opinions there are going to be. And I don't have hard data or hard mathematical theorems or anything to back this up, but sort of my intuition is that star voting would certainly be worth a try. It would be, I think voters would like it. And I suspect that administrators could tolerate it.
Now, what's going to happen? Hi, Donna.
Hi, Pat. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Sorry, I just finished attending a different webinar and I thought I'd check in.
Well, it's good because Brenda was here and she had to leave. So now
Oh,
Gunnis,
And we're changing the world, it seems like. We've got big plans. Brenda
All
said,
right.
go big.
what's going to happen is we're going to get all kinds of ranked choice voting folks who are going to be pushing for their method. We're going to come up, we're going to be dueling methods, and that's probably not the purpose of the task force. And, that's why initially I said, okay, if we are going to be a task force, we got to figure out what our purpose is. If our purpose is to create a big statewide campaign for a specific alternative method, that's totally different from a task force that is still in the learning and education stage. We gotta wrap our heads around why we're here, why we're doing.
I want to say a few more things. There are some statewide offices which are elected regionally. So for instance, State Board of Education, there is an at-large one. So we would like that one to use, for instance, star voting. And then there are the regional representatives on the State Board of Education. They're mapped by congressional districts, same thing for CU Regent. And if we want to keep those congressional districts, and maybe we just do for simplicity, until we can change a congressional district thing, we make those also star voting. Why not? Because we're talking about statewide legislation. But if we're doing any proportional representation, Jen, what do you think? Should we be doing the proportional version of star voting, or do you want to do?
I am honestly unclear on the mechanism of how the counting method works for anything except STV. I
That's
don't know.
proportional RCV, in case
Yeah.
anybody needs to know.
I don't know. STV has the advantage that it's been used in some places for a very long time. So it's got a track record. It would make the RCV people happy. And of course, it has the same downside that our IRV does in terms of administration. I suspect the one thing about proportional representation that makes people deeply suspicious is that the counting method is complicated. And people will not support a method that they don't understand. And the advantage of STV, particularly once you got all the RCV people out there trumpeting how IRV works so that people have a sense that they understand that, it's not that much harder to explain how STV works once you know how IRV works. So I don't know if it's best, but I think it might be politically most tenable.
And I think we'll hear, wait, you have to pick one method. You can't. And I disagree with that. I think people can handle, it'll make the ballot more interesting, and people will, the ballot will look
already
different. for
have
different-
multiple methods. We have
Exactly.
multiple winter elections for Boulder City
Exactly.
Council, right?
Right.
I think people can handle the fact that this method is how we're going to get proportional representation, and this method is how we're going to do single winter elections.
In Alaska yesterday, they had a top 4 plurality election.
That's
and-
terrible, right? That is the
it-
worst way to set up a ranked choice.
And at the same time, they had the instant runoff voting runoff for a previous top 4 plurality primary.
Right.
So
So if they would use approval voting for the step 1, then it would be very
Yeah.
like what St. Louis does, right? They're just changing the number of candidates on the ranked portion from 2 to 4.
Yeah.
But this sort of combination of something like score or approval to winnow the field and then ranking just a few, I think is something that is obviously showing up in some places, and I think voters like it.
So if they had approval voting in the Alaska primary, would the Democrat have made the top 4?
Probably. Weren't there like only 2 major Republican candidates?
No. There were 49 candidates, including Santa Claus originally. And I think that people would have, you know, a majority of people could have just picked 4 Republicans and they could have all made the ballot. And this way, there's actually a Democrat on the ballot. There was an independent who dropped out.
Well, that's true too.
I think we have to be a little worried about that.
Maud, did you want to say something?
Oh, I just put a link to an Anchorage news piece on the Alaska
I think it also matters whether
elections in the chat.
whether the primary is partisan or not. You know, if you're doing this within the Democratic or the
Oh,
Republican Party, that's one
If it's
thing.
partisan, they can do approval block voting. That
Yeah.
I'm more okay with approval block voting for a partisan race than for a blanket nonpartisan primary.
Yeah,
Where
for a
really are
nonpartisan race, I almost would rather not have a primary at all. Just do score voting or do star voting or something like that and do it all at once.
We're getting in the weeds, guys.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Pat. You're
We
right.
need to come back to,
Okay. Donna, some of the things that you missed, we were talking about using the forum as a tool for league members but making the meeting invitations public. Brenda floated her name as a possible web person because we're going to get a bare bones website set up pretty soon.
Okay,
And we talked about having co-facilitators being geographically diverse. And Brenda hit her face because she was from Gunnison and everybody else was from Boulder County. And I still think we should have co-facilitators, but we probably want more people at the meeting before we start having too much. There was some concern about people lurking, worried about sabotage, and then on the other hand, worried about excluding introverts. So I think we've kind of discussed those membership questions. I think people want the facilitator to be a league member. Speak up if you disagree. But we want the group to be open to both experts and newbies.
Mhm. Sounds good.
One thing we
Did
have
we-
not,
did we ever find out who that Amy person was?
there was somebody named Amy Granat who registered for the meeting. So I'm guessing it's her, even though it said Amy W for her
Yeah.
screen name. Do you have your hand up, Maud? There was in the agenda, there's an idea about, do we want to create a set of basic principles that guides our task force? And I don't know if people got a chance to look at that.
I think we do, but I also wonder if, like, is it really going to be this small? If we're going to have more members eventually, we might want to do that when we have better attendance.
I think if we're going
Okay.
to call ourselves a state task force, we've got to have more local leagues involved, or
Mhm.
we might as well just do what we
The
normally
Gunnison
do.
Boulder,
Invite everybody to our meetings, our local voting methods team meetings.
Are you thinking then that you maybe need to do some preliminary education that's a little more broad, so more league members might, from other leagues might feel comfortable joining? Maybe they haven't had much of a background as to what it's about.
Well, and maybe we really need to, this is not a bad time to just really try to come to a consensus of what this task force is all
Yes,
about, what we're doing, why we are a task force. And then we can put it out to
yes,
other people and say, look, this is what we plan to do. You know, at the first meeting, we were really kind of all over the map. It really was kind of all over the map, and it wasn't, there was no consensus as to just what we're about. Everybody was kind of throwing out ideas, and we've got to consolidate those ideas into a real statement of this task force is going to blah, 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 not just be a task force on alternative voting methods, because that is so broad. We never would come to any kind of conclusion of what we're about. Are we an education task force? Are
Mhm.
we an advocacy task force? And if we're, and with either one, what are we learning about? And what are we going to be advocating for specifically? You know, there are folks who really want to be gung-ho lettuce, like Brenda. Man, she's ready to get the primaries moving with whatever. I have a feeling she's an IRV person, but I don't know that for a fact. Is that what we want to do? You know, we have to know what we want to do before we can get other people involved in doing it with us.
What do you want to do, Pat?
That's a good question. I think an awful lot of learning still has to go before we're ready to have a statewide campaign for something. I'm concerned about the ranked choice voting people, and that they're not being as they dissemble a bit.
Maybe that's a reason for us to get out early on advocating for alternatives.
Because they're way ahead right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with you. There's a ton of education to be done, but education can be a piece of advocacy. It needs to be.
I mean, I'd be all for trying to settle. We were really talking about Star, trying to settle on specific races maybe, and advocating for try for something. If you're going to go statewide, that's
Here's one question. Because congressional districts can't be changed, they're single member districts, should we try to change the state positions that are based on congressional districts? The CU Regent, the CU, the State Board of Education, or maybe we'd set that aside and worry about governor and the at-large seats and the state legislature.
I'd say on a first pass, go for the highest profile stuff, because that's how you get people's attention. So,
And that means, I mean, high profile is Congress, but we can't do Congress.
no, I know we can't do Congress, but the things that are high profile in the state. So that would mean the top of the ticket things like governor. Or you could just make a blanket statement about, you know, this is how we would like to conduct statewide single winner elections.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a very clean sort of thing. Statewide, it includes at-large CU Regent.
Yeah.
It includes treasurer. It includes U.S. Senator,
Yeah.
which is a federal office, which we can do.
Yeah. So I would say, you know, we should have one position for statewide single winner elections. And then if we want to get into proportional representation, which I would love to do, probably just talk about that for the state legislature.
I think that's a good boundary.
so we really
Certainly
need
enough, right? That would, we're talking
It's
about
plenty.
enormous changes in statewide elections. So I certainly don't think we need to set our sights any higher than that right now.
So to be successful, we really should have on this task force somebody from most of the leagues in the state. If we're going to set our sights on state advocacy, we need to have more people. you know, just the few of us. Well, in a practical sense, how to set all this in motion is going to be very difficult.
The state has a president's list. They could put out a statement to each of the league presidents saying, we are considering advocating for better voting methods for statewide elections. We could list them all. And possibly a proportional voting method for the state house and the state senate. And we would really like to have somebody from every league be part of this task force.
That would
It
be
will
great.
be a state task force, whether or not your league is represented, but we would prefer to have every local league represented.
Well, and ultimately, if we come up with a statewide campaign, that's going to take a lot of folks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we would need a lot of local leagues going out, people in local leagues going out into their communities and holding, forums and things to educate people.
My understanding is there is going to be a proportional RCV bill in the legislature. Colin Larson is one of the sponsors of it. My guess is it's for municipalities. I'm guessing it's not for legislators, but
Okay, but that's a
maybe,
start, right?
but maybe we could talk. Maybe somebody should talk to him and ask him, can we see your bill? Andrea, I don't know if you would be a good person to ask that question.
Yeah, I think we should definitely inquire about that. I think that's a great place to start.
And tell them that we're a statewide task force on alternative voting methods, and we would like to work on this bill with them. And I think right now RCV for Colorado is working with them, but it would be nice if we could have a place at the table too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be happy to get in touch unless someone on the call has got a relationship that we can leverage.
I don't particularly, but if you would do that, that would be wonderful. There were two names that I saw in an email about this. I don't know if anybody else got that email. It was from RCV for Colorado, I think, or maybe it was sent to Beth. I don't remember anyway. If I find the other name, I'll tell you. Meanwhile, if you contact, he's a representative, right? Rep Larson? Okay. If you could contact him, that would be great, and ask him about the bill. Sounds like we've done some heavy thinking here. I'm pleased.
Mhm.
Go Brenda, making us move forward. Okay, I think we need, what do you think of that idea of sending something out to all the presidents?
I think
Of
that's
local
great. That's a great idea. I mean, Pat is 100% right here. We need statewide representation. A lot of people in the state don't like those snooty people from Boulder telling them what to do.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what about our next meeting?
This is not going to be a good time for me once the
Oh.
semester starts next week.
It didn't seem to work very well doing the doodle poll.
Do we want to find a time that works for us? And then, so evenings work, evenings and weekends is what I'm hearing from Jen.
I conceivably have some time on Tuesday mornings and Thursday afternoons would be my weekday times. But yeah, evenings and weekends good. On the plus side, I'm about to be an empty nester, so my evenings and weekends are a lot freer.
I I know for a fact that's not a plus for Jen.
It's not a plus, but for purposes of having time available to do other things, it does open up some space in the schedule.
Well,
And
and, you know, if we have daytime meetings like this, we discourage folks who actually have to go to work.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I think
What was-
evenings and weekends.
what
are
was the
fine.
previous, anybody remember when the previous meeting was? I can.
It
that
was
got
5
more-
PM,
Okay. Yeah,
5 PM
that,
on the 21st of July,
which
which was a
was,
Thursday, I believe. And
Yeah.
Thursday
Yeah.
now have, so the problem with Tuesday and Thursday evenings is that that's when we have city council and school board meetings.
And I have karate class those nights, so those are my bad nights too.
There's never
So-
gonna be a perfect time, but
what
So
about Monday or Wednesday?
Monday or Wednesday,
That'd be great with me.
do you want to say, okay. And do we want to say?
I don't think we can wait, we can't wait another whole month if we're gonna try to coalesce into something that's going to be an active group.
Yeah.
You know, I think immediately we've got to get something out to the presidents, and I suppose we should have a date and a time in there to.
How about Labor Day?
Some
I-
people
I-
travel on Labor Day. How about the Wednesday after Labor Day?
Works for me.
That's September what?
That would be
7th.
September 7. So the first are you interested in the first Wednesday? See if the first Wednesday works? Or you just
Yeah.
want to do the next
I
one
mean-
and see what?
Maybe we try to set a standard time, like the first Wednesday of every month. I think Pat's right that we want to move faster than every month for this next meeting, but maybe after the next meeting, we can get some stuff going. I mean, it'd be
If
good
we
if we.
want more, we could even do first and third or something.
Yeah. Okay,
What
Um,
time?
5 PM, 6 PM, 7 PM.
I'd probably vote 7, but that's not a requirement for me.
Donna, what do you think?
I think at this point, I'm mostly sitting in. And I'll need to talk to Brenda.
There are some groups that meet at 6:30.
Well, that's a pretty good compromise, I think, because people can either eat before or after, and it wouldn't be too early or too late to
Okay.
interrupt dinner times.
So I think we should look at the calendar, the LWVCO calendar, and see what's on
See if
there.
there's anything going. You bring
Um,
it up.
Let's see.
Taking a while to
September.
come up.
There is nothing on Wednesday, the 7th.
Okay, good.
And let's see if the first Wednesday in August, there was a screening of the Gabby Giffords film. That's a one-time thing. There was LWVUS had something during the day. So I'm not thinking that there's a regular, at least public-facing LWVCO event, and the board doesn't meet then.
There's an LWV Arapahoe Douglas County Fall Kickoff Meeting, the third Wednesday of the month at 7 PM. But lots of kickoff meetings. Okay. We're all busy people. Let's plan for September
that one.
7th, 6:30. Sound good? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Great. Andrea, you're going to talk to Colin Larson.
Yep.
I'll write something up for Beth unless somebody else wants to do it. Or maybe I'll have Beth listen to the recording.
No, Maud says no.
I think just a couple notes of,
I like
you
what I
have,
said, but I'm not sure I can recreate it.
you said about 3 things to Donna and the discussion. I think that the action items that Andrea is going to contact a legislator who might be introducing an alternative voting methods bill so that we can get a seat so the task force can get a seat at the table. And that the next meeting, we're going, that you're asking for a note to the local league presidents to publicize the task force so that more people can come. You know, what would work even better would be something in the newsletter
Or
on the
both.
task force,
Well, or actually both.
or both. Yeah, absolutely. And Andrea, I don't remember what the schedule is for the newsletter. I know that there's a monthly one. There's one that comes out that is just the news without the weather with all the events listed. And then there's one that comes out with articles, and I don't remember what the timing is. I know they're Fridays, but I don't remember which is when.
Yeah, I'm not recalling specifically the frequency either, but we could definitely connect with Lindsay on that.
And then probably somebody should write a little blurb that would go in the newsletter and to the presidents.
That's what I wanted the recording for, to see if that I could just repeat what I said orally, write it down for the
Oh.
president.
Oh, well, I think what you said was that the task force is going to be working on alternative voting methods is thinking of working on the alternative voting methods at the state level and legislation at the state level, and would like representation from all the local leagues.
I think we were a little more specific talking about statewide elections and then possibly proportional representation for state legislative offices.
Yep.
But, okay.
But we're not just going to be talking about them. It's going to lead to
Right.
some kind of advocacy campaign.
Why don't I write something
Kind of
up?
hashing out the strategy, I would say, just kind of figuring out what we think we're hoping to accomplish, getting clear on that and figuring out what our strategy looks like.
Yeah. We got to do that.
Okay. I'll write something up. Maybe I'll run it by you, Pat,
Sure.
and Maud, you can, I mean, I could run it by everybody, but it starts to get to be a lot of hot, Maud, I think you sign off on it before it gets printed, since you're the LAC liaison. I mean, you're the LAC contact, so, or whatever.
So
We
is,
want you to-
so is Andrea. Either of us can look at it.
Okay,
In fact, if you send it to both of us, probably the first one of us will respond and copy
Okay.
everybody else, whoever gets to it first.
okay.
Does that work
great.
for you, Andrea?
Sure, that works for
Looking
me.
at, looking at text.
Okay, and we'll figure out Wednesday, September 7th, 6:30. We'll see everybody again, and maybe we'll have some, like a proposal written up for,
That sounds good.
maybe Jen, do you want to write a proposal for next time for a star for all the statewide races?
Oh, sure, although I may want to run it by you some.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. It
So
doesn't
speaking
have
of-
to
speaking
be
of running
very
things,
much.
but yeah, so this is completely off topic, but we still need an agenda for Sunday, right?
Yep.
Yes, yes.
Let me
I'm
know if
working-
you need me to help with that.
Sure, yes, that'd be great. Okay. I think we all have things to do.
Okay.
Donna, I don't have you down for anything specific. But thanks for tuning in. Sounded like you wanted to be more of a listener at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not.
Good to see
Maybe,
you, Donna.
maybe your task could be to report back to Brenda that we're taking her advice to go big.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
I
bye.
And when we